I would love, like, I don't want my kids to have to recover from the faith that I taught them. Like, I don't want them, like, that should be all of our desires.
Hi, we're a group of friends. I'm Jonathan.
Annie.
Katie.
We love to talk about all the things we were never allowed to talk about in church. Sex, sexuality, gender, purity culture, racism, equity, just to name a few. This is a podcast for anyone out there who is looking for fresh ways to think about church, faith community, and spirituality. We believe in the power of responsible storytelling and hope to model this in every episode. Welcome to Sunday School Rejects. Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
I think that we're just going to do this every single episode.
I kind of like it.
Hey.
Well, we're saying hi to the people.
Consistency.
Yeah, saying
Our
hi
fans.
to each other.
To each other.
Our fan. Yeah.
My mom.
Oh,
My mom is surely listening.
I don't know if my mother knows what a podcast is, to be
No.
honest. I love her, though.
Shout out to my 3 friends.
My
Two in the
homies.
room. Yeah.
The Trinity. Yeah.
The Trinity. Yeah.
We're the Trinity.
Yeah, I know. Keeps going back to that.
We keep being heretical.
So we start every episode with "Let's get biblical." Boop, boop, boop,
We really need a
boop.
jingle for that.
Annie, what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, we're going to talk about Paul.
Paul,
Ooh.
also known as Saul.
Formerly.
Would that be his
Saul.
dead name?
You know, we could go down that
No,
rabbit
that's a
hole.
whole other rabbit hole. I apologize.
I'll
The
let you
artist
speak on
formerly
that.
known
probably
as
was
Saul.
not
The artist
PC.
formerly known as Saul.
That was not PC. I apologize.
People have, no lack of opinions on Paul. Do you guys have immediate feelings when I bring up that name?
I just sigh. I just sigh every single time I hear the name
Yeah.
Paul.
Complicated.
Super complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was, you want me to listen to a man?
Yep. Step one.
It's one of those things where if you don't know the story of Paul, I'm sure there is a short YouTube video of it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see someone who was one extreme go to a completely other extreme, and sometimes in not the most positive way
Okay.
is my first kind of thought process with
Mhm.
him. And I'm
Okay.
not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's good. I'm just
Yeah.
like, he does feel like a very extreme person.
Yeah.
Would you call him a zealot?
That feels like a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like if he's not on one end of the spectrum, he's on another end.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying bad or good. I can be a zealot about certain things. But he's very, very passionate.
You're a zealot about my ice cream.
I do love Jonathan's ice cream.
Yeah.
He makes
Yeah.
great ice cream. Can't recommend it enough.
No
Dare I
complaints.
say it's biblical?
I was initially planning to win you guys over to the Paul side, but I actually think I would just like to neutralize Paul.
Okay.
We're going to neutralize Paul.
Oh, right. Hey, I'm here
That's
for it.
gonna make
Please,
it look-
please.
That sounded so close to neuter. And I was like, we're going to what, Paul?
Yeah. I do have to start with a definition for an academic word. I'm going to teach you an academic word today, and the word
Okay.
is pseudonym. Oh no, I can't pronounce it.
Oh,
Pseudonymous. Pseudonymous.
say that 5 times fast.
Pseudonymous?
I came here to teach you a word, and I can't even say it. Yeah, say it. Wait, say it.
Pseudonymous?
Yeah, that feels right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't, the trick here is not looking at the word as you say it.
Yeah, that's true.
The
Yeah.
root word is pseudonym.
Okay.
And basically, a thing that happened pretty frequently in the ancient world was that people would write in the name of someone else. We would call that plagiarism today, but back
You
then,
mean like ghostwriting?
it's not exactly ghostwriting. It was what we would call plagiarism, essentially.
Oh, like you're signing like I wrote something and I'm going to say
I,
that-
Paul, am speaking to you today. It's not Paul speaking to you today.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
But very common, you were trying to invoke the authority and the language and the ideas of the person you were writing in the name of. But so this actually happens pretty frequently in a lot of our canonized biblical texts. A lot of scholars have created some pretty solid arguments around authentic writings of Paul and pseudonymous writings.
You're going to get it by the end of this podcast.
By the end of this podcast, hopefully.
I believe in you.
It's because it's too tiny on my phone screen. I need my laptop to turn back on again. So some are authentic writings of Paul and some are written in the name of Paul. Yes.
But how do we know?
You can Google it. There's a Wikipedia page about it.
And that is our source for everything, folks.
Yeah, wow.
Everything you're hearing here today, Wikipedia backed.
No, but from a scholarly perspective, there's like the Greek language, the way they write. There were some words that didn't exist when Paul was alive that exist in later writings, that it's like Paul wouldn't have known those words.
It's like handwriting analysis where it's like I can tell based on how they did this I or how they use this word.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how I'm a PhD student. You can tell, professors can tell when you're using AI because they can put it through like a generator or something that kind of tells them like this does sound like the student's voice or this does not.
Yes,
so something
exactly.
like that.
And the scholars know how to tell these differences. And there's lots of, resources and writings on that if you're really curious about authentic writings of Paul versus inauthentic writings of Paul. But to sort of get into it, I was going to pick a verse for this, but there are so many verses from Paul that are about sexual immorality and staying pure and things like that. And so really how I would portray Paul, if I could, in a modern context, he's your weird doomsday uncle. Yeah.
Does he have a bunker?
He has a bunker.
Oh, no.
Well, he doesn't have a bunker because he's planning to get, caught up in the sky, right? He's planning to
ascend.
He thinks that God is coming, Christ is coming back any minute now. Like his end times thinking is so imminent that everything he writes is colored by that. That's the main thing. And the other thing that deeply colors everything he says is his Jewishness.
Okay.
We often override Paul's Jewishness, thinking he is this Christian figure. Paul was Jewish. And essentially what he thought...
He was a convert?
He was a convert. Okay. Essentially what his beliefs are is that when Christ died, a window of opportunity has opened up to allow Gentiles into the Jewish fold so that they can spend eternity in the kingdom of heaven. And that is what is happening. And so all of Paul's writings, especially his authentic writings, are colored by, hey, we got to get as many Gentiles into this window as we possibly can. But ultimately, it is an extension of Judaism, right? We are extending the Jewish identity to our Gentile brothers and sisters. And a lot of what Paul is trying to convey to these groups of people is as much Jewishness as he thinks he can offer them.
So it's kind of, so what I'm hearing is he's just trying to help. He wants other people to have what he has.
Yes.
And he thinks that what he has is the best thing. And this is the way to get there.
And we don't have
urgent.
much time. And it's
urgent.
extremely urgent. Yeah.
That's helpful. That's actually very helpful.
And so when Paul especially talks about Paul's sexual ethic is celibacy. That's something that's pretty clear throughout all of his authentic writings and even continues on to his pseudonymous writings.
Ooh,
she
did it. Gold star.
Yeah, but he also keys us into why celibacy is important to him, and at different points throughout his writings, it's because it is a distraction. He is like, the work is now, the work is urgent. We have a lot to do.
You don't got time for sex.
We don't. Yes. He's like, if you're married, you're going to get distracted by your husband or wife.
You can't go to Boom City.
You can't go to Boom City.
Oh my God.
You can't go there. We don't have time.
And I'm sure there are others who would say,
yes.
What you talking about, girl? I bet you got time.
Yeah. And in addition to that, considering his Jewishness, when he talks about purity, he's talking about Jewish understandings of purity. We're talking Old Testament, the type of things that modern Christians don't really pay attention to or wouldn't adhere to even if they knew exactly what Paul meant. Do you know what I mean?
Like keeping it kosher?
Keeping it kosher, right. Like the clothes that I'm wearing right now
Gotcha.
are a blend, and I am not following kosher Old Testament standards.
But Jesus is coming right through that door any second
I
now.
just gotta take the shirt off. Just kidding. Sorry, Jesus.
Yikes. Different podcast.
Different podcast.
Well, Annie, thank you for giving us that insight on Paul, because I had no idea.
Yeah. So just really wanted to bring it home that, like, not that we shouldn't listen to Paul, but I do wonder what Paul would think if he had known that Jesus wasn't coming back for thousands of years and possibly longer. Would you have what would you have wanted people to adhere to more Jewish laws? What would you have emphasized over other things? But this is how I think if we're going to approach Paul and his comments on sexual purity, we have to have all of those things in mind, because that is where he is coming from. That is the context that he is speaking into. And it's different than our modern context.
Yeah. Magic word today, context.
Yes.
Love it. Thanks, Annie.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jonathan, I feel like we're about to jump into a very cool interview that you were pumped about since the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, really, since the beginning of thinking about what we're doing with this project. Matthew Paul Turner was someone I wanted to have on. Matthew has been writing for over 20 years now. But specifically, a lot of folks might know him because he writes Christian children's books.
Cool.
And they are I would call a radical departure from a lot of the children's material that I was seeing when I was growing up. So I love that he is forging a new path for children and for their parents to discover the divine in joyous and healthy ways rather than what I would call harmful and fearful ways of what I saw growing up.
That's awesome. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, very excited.
All right, well, let's get into it.
Can I tell you how excited I am to be on this call with you right now, Matthew Paul Turner?
Please.
When we began, I mean, this is a process. This podcast has been ruminating in my mind for quite some time. But as we started thinking about, okay, we're going to interview some folks who are doing some really great work in the space, your name popped into my head almost instantly, of someone who is candid, who is honest, but also is doing incredible work. So I'm just so excited that you agreed to be on the podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's my pleasure to be here as well. And so I've actually been looking forward to this conversation. So
Well,
thank you
awesome.
for having me.
Well, and I we talked a little bit earlier. I remember having a very great conversation with you when you were in Dallas promoting books. And I feel like in a matter of about 10 or 15 minutes, we covered a gamut of topics. So I'm hoping that we'll get a few of those check marks as we're talking today. But I wanted to start kind of at the beginning. I mean, so for those who are listening, Matthew, I know you mainly for your work as a Christian children's book author. And I know your bio is way more than that. You're multifaceted, but I am interested, what books, materials really stand out to you when you were a child growing up in the church?
Well, I was raised in an independent fundamental Baptist church. My parents left the Methodist church when I was 4 years old and helped start this, small town church with 7 other families. It ended up growing. We were on the eastern shore of Maryland. And so fundamentalism was not something that was a part of the culture in our hometown. And so we stuck out like sore thumbs, and like we ended up being one of the largest churches on the whole eastern shore of Maryland. And I had Barbies burned in front of me to explain hell as a kid. I also went to the school that was associated. So like early on, the only resource we even like promoted was the it was all about the Bible. Like it was all, and it was all about the King James version of the Bible. Everything else was, heretical, and we weren't allowed to read it. And so that was my life for 14 years of, I went through all 12 years of the school that was associated with the church, and then graduated, and my parents stayed involved for 2 more years. And so, the only thing that was out that I sometimes will call windows to the outside world was there were a couple Christian musicians that I was able to listen to. Sometimes I had to do that in secret, just a bit, and it was like a window to the outside world. And when I say that outside world, I just mean to another facet of Christianity. It wasn't anything out, I hardly knew. I took a class in college called commercial music, and I remember it was all about like testing on the music of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I didn't know any of it. Like I didn't. I mean, like I was clueless about all of these songs that other people, like, they were standards in their lives, and I had no concept of it all because I wasn't allowed to listen to any music that had a drum beat. Like, one of the biggest arguments my mom and I ever had was she found an Amy Grant CD under the front seat of my car, and it was like finding porn. Like, that's how that's the that was the level at which she was upset. And I didn't go to movies. I remember in college, I went to my first movie at a movie theater, and my mom cried. So I was definitely sheltered as a kid.
Yeah.
And so the one thing I guess I would call we did follow the Abeka program at some point, and we also followed the ACE program in the school. So I was very much, if for people who are familiar with like 80s and 90s homeschool, that might be something that they are familiar with. But that's, as far as like resources, we just mostly leaned on the Bible.
That's fascinating. I mean, so not even like a children's Bible or like a youth, it was all just KJV.
It was, yeah, KJV. And it was like most of us all carried like Schofield reference Bibles, which a Schofield is like, like historical, early 1900s. And he helped popularize the Bible during the early 1900s. And so, like, I mean, there were a few books that would come and go. Like, I remember my parents reading like 88 Reasons Why Jesus is Coming in 1988, things like that. But like, we weren't really connected to the bigger popular Christian world at all, other than Sandy Patty. Like, I mean, that was really
diva.
We
Love
listened
her.
to Sandy Patty. Yeah, I mean, love her. Like, I love her. Like, she was my first concert. She was my first
Matthew, that was my first
kind
concert too.
Like,
my first concert was Sandy Patty.
Seriously?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you remember which one? Which one was it?
First call opened.
Make Your Praise Glorious.
It had to be 85 or 86.
Let There Be Praise.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that was Let There Be Praise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My first concert was Make His Praise Glorious. Like, I was a part of the friendship company. Like, I became like this crazy massive fan of Sandy Patty. It was like like.
Do you remember the theme song to Friendship Company?
It was considered contraband. Welcome to your friendship company.
Living in my head rent free all the time. I'm telling you, I love that song. Oh my gosh. And I can still see, I can picture, of course, I had it on cassette, but I can still picture the album cover.
Me too. Yeah. That was it's I have gotten to know Sandy a little bit over the years, so I have often told her that, like in some ways she saved my life, that because she gave me a different, she gave me a different perspective of the Christianity that I was only allowed to experience. And so I she we have laughed because, it was, she was like it was like looking, and I wanted my Christianity to look more like hers.
Mm,
So
mm. I mean, I just remember her coming out on stage, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this woman is so glamorous. And the things she does with her voice, I love her so much. Like for a
I mean,
young
yeah,
gay boy, she was it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, she totally was, and she was she was my Judy Garland, my Barbara
Yes.
Streisand, my
Yes.
whatever. Like, I mean, that was how I viewed her. She was, my parent, people in my church would have said she was my Madonna, but I didn't care. So
So you've got like this so like childhood of very, very narrow perspective. So
mhm.
where is the transition? I mean, when did you decide to start writing Christian children's books? And like when and why? How did that happen?
During the 90s and early 2000s, I dabbled in lots of different forms of Christianity. I call it my experimentation stage. and and so, like, I was Calvinist for a little while, and
Mm,
I believed that being chosen it sounded like wonderful. Like, to a independent fundamental Baptist, it was just edgy enough to, like, piss off my parents a little bit. My parents were just flabbergasted when I came home and told them that I was, a Calvinist. And then I dabbled in charismatic churches a little bit. But you just the older I got, the more people I was able to meet because I was so sheltered. I remember, like, meeting my first atheist at a community college that I was attending, and just being so taken back that, like, it was like I was meeting an alien. Like, it
mm,
was they were like I had never met anyone that didn't have any belief at all in God. And so it knocked me off my foundation, honestly. And there were people that I met along the way that did that a lot. Like, I was constantly knocked off what was comfortable because I only had knowledge of one way. And whenever somebody came in with a different way, it it felt uncomfortable. And but also, on the flip side of that, every step away from it would create this drama for my family that was overwhelming. So there was this constant need for me to, like, keep secrets. Like,
mm.
I learned, when I tasted tasted wine for the first time. I stopped. I didn't tell my parents about it because God knows if they knew that it would be a big thing. And so, like, every step away from my childhood faith became like this big controversy. Um, and so, by the early, 2000s, I was in a Bible church, and I just was bewildered by all of the things. I just didn't understand how. I was just very sarcastic about all of evangelicalism at that point. And then Katrina happened. It was Hurricane Katrina, and I watched. I was one of those people who fell hook, line, and sinker for George W. Bush's, compassionate conservative
Mm, mm.
verbiage. And And I saw all of that fall to pieces during Katrina. And it was Katrina that basically pushed me to and our response to it, the racism, the injustice, um, just the how the church helped so many of the white people and didn't help the people who weren't white. That just blew my mind, and I that was the beginning of my deconstruction, or what was then called, just a slippery slope.
Yeah, right.
And my whole my voting life changed. And basically I tell people that I started to change my political perspectives on all the things, um, long before I had any theology for it. Like I would sometimes, and I didn't really care about that I didn't need theology for loving my neighbor well. I mean, that was as much theology as I needed. Um, anyway, so when I was married, it was I was a writer, and Jessica, my ex-wife, um, and we're still friends. Like, she was the one that said, you have this gift for rhyming, because I wanted to be a songwriter at some point in my life. She goes, why don't you take a try at writing a children's book? And so I hemmed and hawed over it and thought about it and decided at some point, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I set aside like 4 or 5 months, and every free time, when I had like a minute to escape, I would just go and start writing a children's book. And I finally got one idea, and it was called God Made Light. And I was really proud of it. I had people tell me it was good, and I sent it to my agent, and my agent sent it out to all the publishers. And I got 11 no's. Everyone in it said no. And the reason why I started writing that children's book was, it was not only Jessica, it was also, I discovered how every single time I would ever read children's books about God to my kids, I was editing it in my head. Like, I was changing the words to it, because I didn't agree with the theology, or I didn't like it was way too heavy, or it was it used pronouns for God, and I didn't want my kid to have that perspective of God. And so writing children's books was a way for me to introduce God to my kids in a completely different way than how I was introduced to God as a kid. And so I wanted them to know God as life affirming and hopeful, and just delighted in who they were, regardless of of who they are. And so I got 11 no's. We ended up self-publishing that first book, and we ended up selling all but like 200 copies of the 5,000 books that we got printed, which was a big deal. And we ended up, and at the same time, I was also starting to work on the second children's book and it ended up being called When God Made You. But at the time in my head, it was just called God Made You. And one of the publishers came back, one of the publisher that had actually said no twice came back and said, hey, let's do this. And we created a book. That first book came out in 2017. And it connected with people because it showcases a God that delights in our kids, that is safe, that is hopeful, that is full of joy.
I want to go back to how your politics, your kind of your voting, everything changed, but you didn't necessarily have the what the theological framework yet. You just knew something was going to change. And I think that folks get so intimidated by the word theology. They feel like that, this is just a heavy thing. But when those moments in life where things get super real, when like all the frills get taken away. And I always talk about like when I came out of the closet, like I didn't know how to think about God and how to talk about God, because the God that I thought I knew, that whole construction did not exist for me anymore. It couldn't exist for me to. So there is an amazing embodiment in living through that moment of, okay, I know that I have to leave this stuff behind. And, now we call it deconstruction. But
Right.
I love that you are writing things to help kids begin healthy and creative ways of thinking about God, the divine, how to talk about it, how to live through that, and not to have such a strict framework that I think both of us grew up with.
Well, but it was the source. It was the life source of our faith, because without those, like, I mean, most of my faith wasn't faith as a kid. It was fear. I was afraid of doing anything that was outside of the box of who my church said God was. I was afraid that God would. I was afraid that Jesus was going to come back and catch me in sin. I was afraid that, that I would ruin my life and embarrass my parents, or, like, just there was like, it was so built, so manufactured in fear, that I don't think that it wasn't until I was much older and had a lot more therapy that I realized how broken the kid that I was, like, truly experienced life. Like I have done a whole lot of inner child work in my adult years. And one of the most powerful things that I have been able to do is, in some of the core moments of my life, is to go back and sit with that kid and relive the fear and the anxiety and the stomach problems and and the bullying and all of the bullshit that was my life, my faith, my whole world at that time. And, and my therapist has led me through moments of actually rescuing my child self out of those moments that when nobody else would. Like, it's crazy to be surrounded by adults and nobody no one looking around and saying, what are we doing to our kids? Who's going to rescue this kid? And so having the power to go back and do some work with my child, my inner child, and rescue him out of some of those experiences was a wildly powerful experience for me. And so, like, I think that for me, I just, in 2025 or 2005, I just stopped wanting to be afraid. I was still very much afraid, but I wanted to not be afraid. And I wanted to see, what would it be like to experience life where I wasn't paralyzed by my fear and anxiety for what I didn't know, for the things that might happen. Like, I just, and I think that, certainly life experiences when you have kids, that changes your life, and you start to see life a little bit differently, and you start hoping that this innocent little kid, this life that you have created, like you start to think of them as, what can I do different for them? How can I, what am I gonna like encourage them to believe? And and I remember my son during kindergarten, I think it was, he was in the back seat of the car, and he just out of the blue asked me, Dad, what is there such thing as a devil? And I'm like God coming into the Garden of Eden when, saying, who told you that? Who told you you were naked? It was like, I mean, I wanted to I wanted to rip all the little kids' heads off who told them about Satan or whatever, but not really. I'm just being silly. But, but for me to sit in that, because I did in talking to my therapist, it was like, hey, let's not give your child the fears that you've lived with. Let's talk through them. Let's talk about them in today's terms, as opposed to you fighting a battle that you don't need to fight anymore. And I think that's so often, I think that's what happened with me and my family when I came out, is I was no longer afraid by that point. And so the things that they brought up, the things that they tried to manipulate me with, the things that they tried to use to keep me in a closet or keep me from talking out loud about me coming out, it was all their fears. It was no longer my fear. And so I was able to be like, I don't need to answer that. Like, cause that's not a fear of mine anymore. So when you start to take the fear out of the religion, or take the fear out of the Christianity or the faith, like you have to, for one thing, you have to grasp and hold on to what is left.
Right.
What is left after you've taken that away, because so much of it is left in fear. But then I remember the book that that moved me for some reason was, it was called Take This Bread. And it was written by a pastor in San Francisco, and it was all about her church's outreach to the unsheltered people. And it blew my mind, because it was a practical way of enacting faith. It was a tangible way of watching faith happen. And that book gave me a new perspective for what faith looks like. That faith isn't this like fancy feeling that you get welled up with all the time. Sometimes it's just doing the right thing for the person in your life that needs something right to happen in their life. So you start to look at your neighbors and look at the people around you differently.
That's the gospel message right there, right? Is like going into the all world. The good news is it doesn't have to be like you've always thought it needed to be. There's another way. There's another way forward. I also I think you are, now we are advocates for therapy on this podcast. We are all about therapy, but I think your work is at least saving some children from having to go through the therapy that you've had to go through in terms of that childhood, like religious trauma. So, I mean, amazing that you are doing amazing, productive, constructive work of creating a new tomorrow that kids can live into. I celebrate that.
I would love, I don't want my kids to have to recover from the faith that I taught them. I don't want them, that should be all of our desires for our children, for the people whose who are our friends, the people who we lead, like nobody should have to recover from the faith that they were taught or given as a kid. And right now we're in a season of lots of people in recovery for not just they're not just going through deconstruction. They are trying to pursue healing because of all of the bullshit that they have been given, everything from the purity stuff and the bad theology and the anti LGBTQ nonsense and the racism that is like weaved throughout evangelical culture. And so you have to, like, it's not just deconstructing faith. We are deconstructing broken worldviews that we all believed with our whole heart. And so that's it's a powerful thing to be able to be a part of, hopefully my books are giving kids and giving parents new language to talk about belief and talk about faith and talk about God in a way that is healthy and happy and won't require therapy when it's all said and done.
I love that. I love that
because that's my hope, because I still have so much belief. It's just different than what it was, what it looked like as a kid.
Right.
It's I don't want my kids going to school worrying about their sin life. I didn't there's just certain words that were such big words in my life that I've never even talked to my kids about. I don't have to. I don't feel and as soon as I start, it's so funny. I remember when I started talking about sex with my oldest, those first couple of conversations were I still had some fear mixed in. How am I gonna, I want my kid to thrive, but I also don't want him to thrive that much, that kind of thing, where it's you had so but when you again when I realized that it was my fear that I was projecting as opposed to it being any kind of cultural wisdom in that moment, I was like, hey, let's have some real honest conversations. And I was afraid that honesty or that real information wouldn't serve him well. And I was wrong. It serves our kids very well to have all of the knowledge, age appropriate, of course, but all of that knowledge about sex, about what, that to talk about things, to get to answer questions, for them to be able to talk about, my son, my 17-year-old still comes to me once in a while with a question about sex that I don't think I love when he feels brave enough or free enough to come and ask me something that is, dealing with sex, because I get to answer and I get to have a real great conversation with him. And it's not built on all the whole idea of how am I going to frame this information in order for him to do exactly how I would want him to do. It's not that. It's about telling him the truth, giving him, scenarios of how this works and how this doesn't work. And, talking about consent in ways that, I was never taught. And so it just, you again, you take the fear out of that those kinds of things. And it becomes so much less scary.
Yeah. Leave the shame and fear behind. I love that. Okay. We ask all of our interviewees one question.
Mhm.
We are Sunday school rejects, so we're going to lean into that. What are
Okay.
you giving yourself a gold star for today?
I love that question. I love art, and I'm terrible at it, but wake up every day thinking about it. And I keep trying to do art. I know that this is not about, like, there's no capitalism mixed into my art. It is literally just for me to use color, to use different types of mediums, whether it's paint, paper, glitter, whatever. Like, I get to create what I want. And now I'm like trying to learn watercolor. And so I give myself a gold star for doing that, because, like, it's not because I'm good at it. It's not because, like, every single process is hard for me. But I love it so much, and I find so much life in it that I keep doing it.
I love
And
that.
so that's what I give myself a gold star.
Do you know what? I grant you permission, not that you need my permission. Paint yourself a gold star. You earned it.
Oh my gosh, I will totally do that. I will.
Matthew Paul Turner, thank you so much for your time. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to be here and be a part of this. I had fun.
Oh my gosh, Johnny, that was such a great interview.
I mean, Matthew's got a lot to say. It's just like I feel like I just wound him up and then just let him go.
I can't wait to read his children's books. Like,
Yes.
they
Yeah.
sound amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, add that to my TBR.
Yeah.
Add that to my like to be read this year. Count them as books. I mean, I found myself connecting so much with what he talked about with his upbringing being so sheltered. Probably not to the same extreme as he was, but like not really knowing what sex was / is, and how he used his life experience to make something new and beautiful out of that and create these children's books and making it accessible for young people and for parents. Like, no one has taught, I mean, this is all of our first time on earth, I think. Maybe we could be reincarnated, who knows? That's a different discussion. But this is our, like, parents don't necessarily get a class on how to teach their kids about God if they want to teach their kids about God. So what a great resource.
Yeah. And I see him taking a fresh approach versus what I now can look back and think of as materials I got as a child. I spent so much time at the Christian bookstore growing up because I would always end up winning these weird contests at the church, like for an essay or, for, I don't know, probably like a weird Bible drill.
You know what? You don't need to brag.
I was a really big deal in fourth grade.
I don't know if you've heard of me, but
I think about a lot of those materials, children's Bibles and stuff. And I'll bring this up. I listen and watch a lot of conservative Christian stuff because I want to see and hear what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the really weird conservative Christian radio channel on like a week or two ago in the car. And it was a children's show. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon. And they were talking about, they were enacting in radio drama,
Mm-hmm.
the story of Abraham and the sacrifice of Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I had to switch the channel because as I remember, it was like flashbacks to my childhood and thinking, I have to love God so much that I'm willing to sacrifice my child to show my love and devotion for. And I'm like, why are you teaching children that sort of very
Intense,
so intense, and also like the trauma based in that? I mean, one never gets into the what if we believe this story to be true,
Mm-hmm.
or if we believe this to be a teachable moment, then what is Isaac's trauma coming out of a moment like that? And why would I want to believe in a God who would lead me almost to the point of putting a knife into my loved one's chest?
Well, and I don't know about you, but as a big reader, I often put myself in characters' shoes, right? So it's like, what if one day my parents have to choose to sacrifice me? Like that's scary.
Well, and it's that idea that because it's biblical, then it's holy and it's transformative regardless of the actual content. And so therefore it is safe for children. The Bible is not safe for children.
No.
And I think that's very important to acknowledge and recognize and have good content for children that still can be, Christian, but doesn't have to have all the most violent content from the Bible.
Yeah. And so we take that and we reframe it with our topic of purity culture and the way that the Bible, again, was used and how it gave us this mindset of this is how it's supposed to be. And so to hear that there are resources like Matthew taking something. And I also love, he talked about in his interview how he changed his mind, like how Hurricane Katrina was a very big turning point for him. And I think for all of us, and for those of you who are listening, we are living in unprecedented time after unprecedented time. And I saw this paralleled a little bit with the Black Lives Matter movement resurge in 2020 and how that was a big catalyst for a lot of people to change their mind and also consider their faith and change the way they thought. And I think I would hope that these conversations that we're having in these interviews that y'all are listening to are also getting y'all to be considerate and critical of your own faith and what you believe and what your values are, and considering maybe I can change my mind about this or that, and hopefully it's for the better. Hopefully it gives you a little more freedom, a little less shame, a little more grace for yourself.
Well, that's the other thing I just want to focus on with Matthew is not creating unbiblical or unchristian text. He is choosing to find the joyful and accepting and inclusive God that's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And those touch points, and right now as we're thinking about immigration in this country, or how we as a country think about war in foreign lands and who receives the oppression and the death dealing ways of how we do war, takes us back to what Matthew is saying. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we are, as human beings, are all made in the image of God
and worthy of love.
Yeah. I wish that the materials I had when I was growing up accented that in a much stronger way. And that was the foundational stuff.
Well, we can't head out without leaving you guys with some resources. Katie?
Well, actually,
I'm so sorry, Jonathan.
It's okay.
Okay.
I would always go to Katie first if I could.
Yeah.
But right now.
And you should, but why don't we start off with some resources straight from Matthew
straight
Paul
from the
Turner?
interview. Matthew mentioned a book by Sarah Miles, Take This Bread, A Radical Conversion, that really impacted him. So we definitely want to drop that in the show notes. Also, Matthew has a ton of books. We'll drop his website. When God Made You is probably his greatest hit, but he's got a lot of children's books and a lot of other writings beyond his children's writing. So we'll leave a link to his website so you can explore really the bounty of his material.
Of his work. Yeah. And maybe, might I suggest, if perhaps you're going to a baby shower of any kind, what if you just added this book in there?
Oh my God, that's so good. That's so good.
An alternative for a
But don't
chick
forget
chat.
the diapers.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't forget the diapers, but also that could be good. Johnny, I was thinking of a resource while you were talking just now when we were wrapping up and talking about war and our ideas of things and changing our minds. And so this isn't directly related to y'all's conversation, but I think it's something that could be helpful for people to grab different perspectives. And that would be the book One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. He is an excellent writer. He's written fiction, and this is nonfiction. And he talks about the war in Palestine as well as the war in his own home country and the U.S.'s portrayal of it versus the portrayal of those experiencing it. And I just think it would perhaps be a great eye-opener for a lot of people in considering those things that you mentioned.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'd not heard of that one. So
it's amazing. I read it twice now.
Oh, wow.
It came out last year, and he's an excellent author. If you are someone who likes to listen to books, he reads the book. So if you want to hear it straight from him, it's really beautiful, but I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, we are advocates for listening to, reading books here, using your local library. I know
Absolutely.
Katie and I are like in our local libraries quite often. This podcast is going to sound weird, but I think it's helpful. The podcast name is I Hate James Dobson.
Love it.
And I really was apprehensive about listening to this podcast, but it's two therapists that are going through books from Focus on the Family, James Dobson, and that ilk. And it is really powerful stuff of thinking about how, I think about my parents in that generation and how they were taught to raise children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's given me so much empathy because that was the resource they had.
Yeah.
And to really, it's nice to have trained professionals who have degrees
Amen.
in therapy talking through why spanking your children is not at age 2 is not a good idea, or maybe spanking is not good at all. But there's so many other things, gender norms and stuff like that. I would really recommend, especially the earlier episodes, so they just go through the books that really were vital for how a lot of our parents were thinking about raising kids.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's also an opportunity, just like we saw with Matthew, of reclaiming something that could have been really harmful or detrimental to us and seeing it through a new lens, and also giving our parents and ourselves like grace in it in a healthy way. And again, big advocates for therapy. So if you need guidance through that process, we definitely recommend a great therapist. I'll plug Inclusive Therapy is a great website, and we can put that in our show notes.
Thanks for listening, you guys.
Hi, friends. We hope you've been enjoying the podcast. Really quick ask. We want to know if there are things that you want to talk to us about or have feedback on these last few episodes you've heard. And we're hoping to have it be our last episode of the season. So if you have any thoughts, questions, etc., feel free to send us an email at ssr@goodfaithmedia.org. We'll also put that link in the show notes. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us for Sunday School Rejects. A huge thank you to all of our sponsors. You can find more information in our show notes. Please go and follow Good Faith Media on Instagram, on Facebook, and follow the rest of the amazing podcast there. You can reach out to us. Send us feedback and information on how we're doing. Our email is ssr@goodfaithmedia.org. Or you can find us on Instagram @Sunday School Rejects. Till next time, practice responsible storytelling and just take care of yourself and take care of each other. Love you all.